Let's talk some Champions League now, guys. Something that Man United unfortunately is not in. But Arsenal are very much in, and we talk about Arsenal being mentality monsters and how they need to be mentality monsters like Liverpool, like Manchester City, like Real Madrid if they want to be winning stuff, especially the Champions League, Rob. We always talk about, at least in the Premier League, it's usually around this time or even earlier where they start to drop off. And as we saw how Manchester City chased them down last season too. But this time it feels different. It feels like they are getting there. And did last night's win over Porto show that?
I think so. I mean, it's obviously very, very sort of early in the run-in this season, but it genuinely felt like a coming of age moment for that Arsenal team. I think we saw last season they were kind of thrust themselves into the title race when perhaps many people weren't really expecting it. And came up short in the second half of the season because they went through a really sticky patch and just couldn't drag themselves out of it quick enough, and then ended up losing the title to Man City. I think if you can come through a Champions League last 16 tie against a very, very good Porto side, a very gritty side who are going to try everything to win, if you can come through that in really high pressure moments, that says a lot about your character. You know, everyone will have expected Arsenal to go. When that tie was made, everyone would have expected Arsenal to go through. They obviously lost in Portugal. They've come back again at the Emirates. Everyone was expecting Arsenal to blow them away and cruise into the next round, and that didn't happen. They've had to really dig in. It's gone to extra time and gone to penalties. And in a really high-pressure moment in front of their own fans, when there's a massive expectation on them, they've come through it. And I think that can only help in terms of the Premier League title race, that a lot of people are looking at that Arsenal team thinking, well, they're going to crack again. They did it last season. They're going to do it again. I'm not sure they are this year. I think that they're going to win enough points to stay in that race themselves. If City have a better run and win it, then so be it. They're a great team. But I think Arsenal showed last night that they have got an added grit and determination that perhaps they didn't have last season. They've got that now. And in really high pressure moments, they can get through and get themselves over the line. And when you're in a title race, that's great news.
And I mean, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit, LME. I know you'll definitely take the bait because obviously this was a huge win for Arsenal, but it did go down to penalties, which almost feels like it resets the whole game. Arsenal were at home. Porto were definitely stubborn, but the whole momentum was with the Gunners and they still couldn't quite break through Porto. So did Porto kind of probably show some other teams a way to really frustrate Arsenal? And is it something that you feel Arteta would worry about?
I will almost take the bait. I'll be so close to it. I'll hover above it just to please you, Alexis, because when you reach the quarterfinals, you will see teams that are very good at being resilient. The king of them being Real Madrid, of course, and then all teams that are playing today, actually, before as we speak, you know, the likes of Dortmund and PSV, Inter and Atleti, they can all play that game as well. So there will be more frustrations to come. So there's no doubt about it. You know, if you are somebody that is expecting a little bit more from an offensive standpoint from Arsenal's side, then yes, you probably would think, I think we need to see a little bit more as the tournament continues. However, I echo Rob's point, which is one of the toughest things in this game of ours is to not just win, but to win when it's so ugly to look at, when it's so tense, when it's less entertaining and more grit. And that's exactly what Arsenal have done. And they've done it twice now in the space of a few days, because that Brentford game, there were shades of it as well. They were playing very hard to make sure that Arsenal didn't get that win. And if you see very closely about what's happening to Mikel Arteta's side, all the way from the beginning where we were criticizing him, I remember, you know, there were murmurs of, is Arteta even the right man for this? Seeing season by season, the development and the progression with some of these players who are very young. At one point, they were the youngest team in the Premier League, and they're maturing before our very eyes. And here are two key components, I think, that make it really worth it. Aside from David Raya, who was fantastic, obviously, in the penalty shootout, about two key components is this. At the back, they have some formidable defensive partnerships here. And I think Saliba and Gabriel are phenomenal. And they're beginning to build a really strong spine. And then the other component is Declan Rice. Having this man in this team this season, and I've said it from the very beginning, it's obviously not exactly the same as what Patrick Vieira used to do for Arsenal, but there are shades of it. This leadership, this no-nonsense commanding presence in the midfield is massive, allowing the likes of Martin Odegaard or Bukayo Saka or anybody that goes forward to really step up. That kind of spine is really important. They were my dark horse, and I'm saying dark horse, the proverbial words here, dark horse, to win the whole thing in the Champions League and win the Premier League. And right now, obviously, there's still more matches to play. Right now, they're proving correctly. There will be more tests to come, no doubt. But this is a very, very good, mature Arsenal who's learning how to win ugly.
Ooh, that's some high praise there. Dark horse to win the Champions League.
And listen, I hate saying it because I hate all my friends who are Arsenal fans and they just keep WhatsApping me with nonsense. But I have to give it up when I have to give it up.
Fair play, Rob. I'll pick your brain on that then too, because I think Arsenal fans are just like, "Whoo, let's just try, breathe, and focus on the Premier League."
I said dark horse. I didn't say
dark horse, yeah. But now they're back in the quarterfinals for the first time in a long time of the Champions League. This is almost, it feels like an extra bonus, Rob, for them. A deserving bonus, yes, but does it sometimes feel like too much too soon? Do you see this somehow affecting, I suppose, their push for the Premier League title?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that it could have an impact. I mean, I'm going to balance out LME's optimism by saying that they don't get through the next round of the Champions League.
There's Rob. There's the Rob that we know.
It depends who they face, right?
Yeah, it does, definitely. The draws are massive. I think if they get one of the big sides, if they get a City or Real Madrid, they don't go through. And I don't think that will be a massive disappointment. I think you talk about things coming too early or too soon. I think probably last season the title push was too soon. This season I don't really see that. I think that the Premier League title is probably more likely, and I think Mikel Arteta, he won't admit that to us, obviously. I think he's probably thinking that in the back of his mind anyway. The quarterfinals of the Champions League is a great place to be. Obviously, after so long without having one, I just don't see that they get very much further, unless they get a very, very kind draw. I don't see they get very much further. I think that Mikel Arteta will be looking at the Premier League running far more closely and thinking that he needs to get through those away games against Man City, Brighton, Spurs and United. They've got those 4 massive away games in their final 10 games. If they can get enough points out of those 4 games, they get very, very close to winning the title. You're right.
Yeah, and stay healthy, right? They got to stay healthy. Well.
You're right pointing to the Champions League quarterfinal, because these games, these massive games, are going to come thick and fast. And if they were to get a Real Madrid or, I don't know, a City, and you were throwing 2 massive games into this title running, that has a massive bearing. That saps energy out of a squad. It does have an effect. It's not as simple as to say, well, these are 2 separate competitions. They don't matter. They're individual things. They don't kind of cross paths. Well, they do, because a massive Champions League quarterfinal would suck the life and the energy out of any squad in the world. And it's how you deal with that. And Arsenal, despite all the praise we're heaping on them, are still quite new at this level. This is quite a young side in terms of title winning experience. So it's definitely going to have a factor. Everything will be on the draw, but I think Mikel Arteta will be looking at the Premier League title race thinking that's the one that I really want to win.